Well, hey y'all, this is Donna at Hazelbell Farm, and I'm going to take you along for my morning chores today. Figured I'd speed this up for you and answer some questions that I frequently get about the farm and about milking and what do we do with our milk. So to start, this is the bare minimum chores that we have right now. We don't have any meat chickens going on. I'm not doing anything in the garden in the mornings unless we have a frost. If we do have a frost, I'll run out real quick and hose everything down before the sun hits the plants to keep them alive. These are 2 3-gallon waterers that I use for the chickens. They do need to be scrubbed every couple of days. If it's a day that they need to be scrubbed, I usually handle that in the afternoon. But for the most part, with the colder weather, they stay clean longer and they just need to be hosed off, hosed out, and refilled. So right now we're not free ranging our chickens. They live in this pretty large coop. One question I frequently get is, how many chickens do you have? I honestly don't know. I'd have to go out there and count. I have counted a couple of times, but nothing recently. And we kind of have a constant rotation of, I don't really like this bird, or she's getting a little bit too old for us. We're not getting consistent egg laying out of her. She might go to another home for somebody who is happy to have fewer eggs. And then I did just take on a few hens from a friend who had too many, was getting too many eggs. And I don't know how many she brought. It's kind of sad. Another question I get is, what do you feed your dairy cows? And so right now I'm mixing a little bit of what we feed them. They are on a ranch mix, is what it's called, from a local feed mill, local-ish. They get local grains in from area farms and mix something that they call their ranch mix. It's a 16% protein. I have a very messy feed shed right now. That video is going to be coming up. But in addition to that 16%, or it's a 15%, I'm sorry. And in addition to that, I do add a little bit of protein cattle cube, and we are supplementing with peanut meal right now, and that is out of processed peanuts from a local peanut farm. It's a high fat, high protein, and so we just use a little bit to kind of boost their protein. They're at the end of their lactation. I don't want them to have too much. So I get their feed ready, and then I get everything else set up ready for milking before I let the cows in, because once they come in and start eating, I'm basically on the clock, and I need to finish before they finish eating, or they start to get a little bit antsy. Now, this particular day, I didn't have any clean jars, and I'm kicking myself for it. This does happen sometimes. I have to wash jars roughly once or twice a week. Everything is supposed to be returned clean to me. We only pour milk into half-gallon mason jars, and then I still wash them with just a basic Dawn antibacterial dish soap, and then they get sanitized using Steramine restaurant food quality, food grade quality tablets, and they get a quick dip in that before a final rinse. So that's what I'm doing here. I know I need 4 jars for this milking. That's about what I'm getting, is 2 gallons, and so that's what you see here is a quick wash before I go out and milk. And then I let these air dry. Usually I have a space heater that I turn on while I'm milking so that they will be good and dry on the racks before I return to fill them. So right now we are machine milking. I prefer hand milking, but we are machine milking. The 2 girls that are in milk are Maple and Dolly, and they both do better on the machine. They're both trained on the machine. Maple has nice long hand milking teats. However, the canals that the milk comes out of are very tight, so it makes for a long squeeze, and it's a little bit frustrating. It takes me a little bit longer to milk, and kind of flares up my tendonitis in my wrist. So we have her on the machine as well. Maple's not giving very much milk right now, probably like a half a gallon a day, which is not much at all for her. I think that's a combination of issues with her. She wasn't set up very well at the beginning of this lactation. She was basically starving. The people I bought her from had just recently bought her and didn't know that she was pregnant. She was almost full term, and she was emaciated. She just was starving. She was a bag of bones. And so they were working on getting weight on her when she calved. And then she didn't get milked at all in the very beginning. I say at all, not very much at all. She doesn't like to let down when she has a calf on her. And so she didn't get milked much, and that set her up for low production throughout her lactation. I also think genes play a role in that. We'll see how she freshens for us this next lactation when she calves later next year, 2023. And if she does better, then we'll hang on to her. She's a good cow. But if she's just a low producing cow for what we do here, she doesn't really suit our farm. So we'll offer her back to the seller first. And then if they don't want her, we will list her for sale to another family. So this is my surge milker. I do have to kind of assemble it every day. Then I bring it out and connect my vacuum pump to that. Get everything set. I'll dump Maple's feed into the feeder before I let her in. Otherwise, she will be very confused. Right now we are on once a day milking. I prefer once a day milking. If we do anything more than that, it's only when they first calve or when we first wean calves, and to get them worked down to once a day again. Twice a day milking is no fun for me. Dairies generally milk twice a day because they want to keep production up. They're all about that bottom line, that dollar. That's why they do what they do. I'm not knocking that. That's just not the whole reason that I do what I do. So normally what we do is we share milk with the cow's calf for the first 6 months, 4 to 6 months after she calves. And we do that by leaving the calf with mama 24 hours a day for about the first 4 to 6 weeks until I go out in the morning to milk and I don't get any milk or I don't get enough to make it worth getting my buckets dirty. That means the calf is drinking all the milk day and night, and they are old enough to start separating. At that point, we will separate a calf at night, and then I will milk in the morning and reunite mama and baby, and they will spend the day together so that I am just on once a day milking only in the mornings. And then that frees up my time in the evenings after that. That short time of 4 to 6 weeks is a little bit rough at first, but that's just the way it is. It is what it is. And then we will milk once a day. Unless I like to take off one day a week. I usually will take off Sundays, or if we take a long weekend vacation or something like that, we'll just leave them together and calf will take care of mama. Everybody's happy to do that. It's nice to give me a break. Currently, we've not been calf sharing for about the last year and a half. I have been milking at least 1 cow to sometimes 3 cows for that year and a half, mostly once a day. That has been rough. I am looking forward to a break. Since Maple is giving such little volume, we are going to dry her off soon and give her a nice long dry period before she freshens and calves again. We're going to do that at the same time that we dry off Dolly, our Holstein. So right now, this is Maple. You see her milking. She gets a little bit of a massage on the udder, and I'm just waiting for her to finish out. This is our Dolly girl. So she's due to calve April 2nd, and she needs at least 8 weeks of dry time. That's our new little girl, Jolene. I will introduce you to her in the next video, I think. But Dolly is so sweet. She's so good. So back to Maple. This is me still waiting on Maple to finish. She's a little bit of a slow eater, and she's actually still milking out. This feeder is one of the best things we've ever done on our farm. Eric built this for me. Before that, cows, when we built it, we were only milking our 1 cow, Hazel, a Jersey, and cows, they just throw feed around. They grab a mouthful and they basically throw it around everywhere. So he built this, and it literally saved me on feed so that I was spending half as much as I used to spend on grain. And so it's been so worth having that kind of a feeder. Holds everything in, it slopes down on the back so she can keep eating. Some other questions we get, especially like with this recent cold snap that we had, we got down to 19 degrees a couple nights in a row, down in 19 to low 20s. We are in Florida, but we do get frost, we do get freezes. And what kind of housing do you have for your cows? So for the most part, none. They have plenty of wood lines and tree lines that they can push up against in the event that we have a strong afternoon thunderstorm. For the most part, anytime we've tried to house cows into stalls during a storm, they don't like it. They don't like to be confined. They would much rather just be out and where they are comfortable. And so we just let them do that. Occasionally we'll get a girl who's a little bit of a diva, and usually it's those Jersey girls, and they like to stand under the shelter in a hard rain. Another question I frequently get is, why is she so skinny? What about all those bones sticking out? Well, I'll tell you this, they are dairy cows. I often hear that from beef cow people, or just the general public who they aren't used to seeing dairy cows. You know, you ride down the road, down the highway, you see a cow field, you see beef cows. You don't generally see dairy cows. So dairy cows score differently than beef cows. They are genetically designed to put all of their calories into making milk. So oftentimes, we pour extra grain to them, extra feed to them, higher nutrient dense hay and haylage and that kind of thing. And all they do is just put that energy into making more milk or more butter fat, something like that. We do work on weight and, making sure that they stay in healthy condition, but it's very difficult to do with your dairy cows. So this is an iodine dip that I use when we're finished. This particular girl, Maple, her teats are pretty chapped. The iodine can be extra drying as well. And since her teats are chapped and dry, I've been using that bag balm on them and then the iodine. So she's a little bit protected from that. The air is just extra dry. That bag balm works really great on your hands and your knuckles if your hands are dry in the winter as well. All right, so Maple's done. She's going to go out, and then Dolly's waiting for her turn to come in. This gets a little bit hectic sometimes, and I have to turn the water hose towards Dolly to keep her out. I need to get her feed into that feeder before she comes in. This stanchion's a very simple stanchion. Maybe we'll do a video on this sometime. Eric built it as well, and we have used it. We've moved it twice, so we've used it at 3 different homes. It's just an easy little hinge system, and then we have modified it here and there to fit our girls. So she's a little bit dirty today, so I use a brush first to brush off any extra loose hairs, mud, anything like that. She just had an extra sandy udder at this time. So I'm using a clean washcloth with a couple drops of soap. I bring 10 washcloths out to use between the 2 girls. I spray chlorhexidine, diluted solution, and it's basically spray, wipe, spray, wipe, spray, wipe until she's clean. And then I will strip out the first few squirts of milk. And then I'll get the milking machine started again and attached to her udder. So Dolly is a special girl. She's a Holstein who came to us from some friends. They weren't milking her. They had a smaller, they have a little bit of acreage, but their space for animals was a little bit smaller. And the situation with her, and she came with a steer at the time, was difficult with the other animals that they had, and she just didn't suit their small farm very well. So they knew that we liked to milk cows, and she came to us. Before I got Dolly, I had no interest in keeping a Holstein. They are notorious for extremely high volume, and I really just had no desire for that at all. They're known for higher volume milk and lower cream milk, and I much prefer the medium volume, not necessarily a low volume, but I like that heavy butter fat content that we get with our Jersey girls. And you get with a brown Swiss and a Guernsey. Holsteins aren't really known for that. They have a pretty low fat milk. So here you see that machine working. So you see a total of 8 tubes there. Each suction cup or inflation has a smaller tube attached to the pulsator on top of the machine. The back side of the pulsator is attached to the vacuum pump. That's the simple pump. It's that feeder. We keep her head locked in. Otherwise, she tends to back out and look around. She's pretty calm. She doesn't kick a lot or anything like that. She just wants to look around and see what's going on. So that keeps her in place. And then there are the 4 larger tubes there. That is what the milk goes down through the inflation, follows the tube down into that big silver canister. So when Dolly came to us, I explained that I didn't know what we wanted to do with her owner, but I'm so glad that we got our hands on her and we started milking just to kind of see what she had. And she produced 2 gallons a day, every day for a while on once a day milking. She's down to about 1.5 gallons now, but she's also 15 months in, or 16 months into this lactation. No, I'm very sorry. She is 21 months in this lactation. It's her first lactation. So cows typically will produce more milk with their second and third lactations than they did their first. She did kind of flinch a little bit there for me, and she does that sometimes. She doesn't kick, like I said. She steps unless there's a fly biting her or something like that. So then we spray again, just like you saw me do with Maple, clean washcloths. I'm not going to use that udder balm on her. She doesn't need it. Her teats aren't chapped at all. So that butter fat I was speaking of is what we make our butter out of. It's what we use as heavy cream. It's what we make sour cream with. Anything that you're going to use heavy cream to make a recipe is what we want that butter fat for. Cream cheese, ice cream, all of those delicious things. So at this point, I am finished milking Dolly, but she's not finished eating. So I open up that head gate so that she can have a little more room. She stays there until she's finished eating. She might look around every now and then, but she stays in there. And I clean up while she finishes. So that means carrying back to the milk room that pump with the long hose, the milk machine, the thermos of any extra rags I didn't use, and then all of the dirty rags as well. So those dirty rags will go into a bucket of bleach water in the milk room until I'm ready to wash them. I usually have to run a load about once a week. So minerals are something that isn't spoken of very much. I've seen around homestead channels. Loose minerals are extremely important for all cattle, your dairy cows in particular. We just inherited a girl who we are kind of cow sitting for a while. We're working to get her bred, and we'll talk more about that on another video. But it was clear to our artificial insemination tech that she had not been on quality minerals. He could tell that besides her coat being kind of shaggy and dull, which is common, you'll see if they are short on minerals or not on quality minerals. She also, her cervix wouldn't dilate when he went to breed her. So he actually asked us, is she on minerals? And she hadn't been. So he could tell right away. She actually got a mineral shot, and she did not settle that first go round. But hopefully now that she's been on the minerals and she got the shot, the second time took. We'll talk more about that in another video. So I always come in, and those are my clean jars. I use a disposable paper filter in that large funnel, and we're getting right at 2 gallons right now. It's about 1/2 gallon from Maple, 1.5 from Dolly. And all in all, it's kind of a batch, a bulk batch. We're getting about a third of that is heavy cream when the cream separates out. I like to keep this little measuring cup handy, stainless steel measuring cup. I like stainless steel because it's easy to wash and sanitize with the rest of our products or the rest of our equipment there. But if I overfill a jar, it's easy to use that to scoop some out. So there we go. We use that filter to catch any debris that may have been left on their udders, any hairs, and it's also a good thing to inspect very quickly before we throw it away and make sure there are no clumps in the milk. Any clumps would be caught by that filter at the bottom of the funnel, and it would show us that that's a sign of mastitis usually. Sometimes if it's very cold and the milk sits for a bit before I get it poured, we'll get some butterfat clumps in there, but that's a pretty clean filter right there. So at this point, I just have to wash everything. So I use, again, that regular Dawn antibacterial dish soap and wash and scrub all of those cups. I run a lot of water through the tubes with the soap. Right now I'm washing those plugs that go inside the inflations, and then they are sitting in that bucket of sanitizer. Everything will get sanitized as well. So another question I often get is, what do you do with all of that milk? Well, our family, we go through a lot of cheese, milk, yogurt, ice cream, butter, cream cheese, cottage cheese, all of the cheese. So our family does eat a lot of it, most of it. Well, not most anymore. We do eat a lot. We make everything that we can right here on our farm. And then we also make some cheeses that we sell for pet food consumption. That is a requirement in Florida. And then we sell the remainder of the milk to some other families who aren't in a position to keep a family milk cow, but they appreciate the raw milk. They appreciate that it comes from a local small farm. And again, we sell it as pet feed with a master feed license. So my favorite thing to make, I think the thing that I most frequently make is butter. We use a lot of butter, and right now I actually have some cultured butter that I've rendered down into ghee, and that gave us, I think it's 6 pints of ghee on the counter in the kitchen. That's exciting. That keeps it shelf stable. It's like a shelf stable butter, and we'll use that alongside some other animal fats that we like to have to cook with on a daily basis, like lard and tallow. The next most frequently used thing that we use is Greek style yogurt. So yogurt is super easy. I will put a link in here to how we make our yogurt. We use the Instant Pot. It's my favorite way. And then we like it strained so that it's very thick and a Greek style, creamy, thick, tangy yogurt. And we just keep it plain until we are ready to eat it, at which time we'll flavor it with some fruit or jams or a little bit of stevia and vanilla, that kind of thing. We also love to make ice cream. We use a Cuisinart ice cream maker to do that. Have a pretty great ice cream recipe that I think I have a recipe. I've done a video for where I share the recipe, and I'll try to remember to link that in as well. It's just a basic vanilla ice cream. It's simple to just add in cocoa powder. If you want to make it chocolate, you could add mint extract and chocolate chips to make that flavor. You could do all kinds of different things. I'm getting ready to do a butter pecan just for fun, where I do use our butter and some pecans from a friend's farm in Georgia. So that'll be exciting. So another question about keeping a dairy cow that I get pretty frequently is, if you were to recommend a dairy cow to a new person who's never kept a dairy cow before and doesn't have a lot of experience with cows, do you think that they should get an older cow or a baby cow to bond with, a calf. And I always say that I'm a little bit of a hypocrite in this department. So when we first started keeping a dairy cow, we got our first cow almost 8 years ago, and she was a 3-day-old bottle baby. She had been sold off of a dairy at an auction barn and then flipped to us. So we paid $400 for her, and she was very sick. She had scours. For months we dealt with, and we had to bottle feed her. We didn't have raw milk, so we bottle fed her a milk replacer formula, comes in a large bag, and we didn't know better at the time, but one formula is not the same as the next, and those that are based with soy are not all that great. And like I said, we just didn't know better. So it took her a long time to get healthy. We had to take her to another farm to get her bred. We had to train her to be friendly and have manners and respect our space. She had horns. We didn't know the right time to get her dehorned, and so we neglected to do that. Well, that's one of the reasons, but we also had some other cows that were mean to her, so we kind of thought it'd be okay to let her keep her horns, and then we later regretted it. She turned out to be the best cow ever, but it was a full 3 years before we were able to put milk on the table. And so that's a lot of time, and that's a lot of money. If I had it to do over again, I can't say I would do it any differently because I loved every minute of it. I did bond with her. She was great. But to the newbie, I say, get you a trained cow who's trained to stand to milk. This is the last part of my basic morning chores. I have to clean out that stanchion. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, I hope you'll like and subscribe. I hope to do more videos coming up soon, and share this with a friend if you like.